Welcome to the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Chris Arnold. If you're tuning in today, man, you've got to hear this story. I've got Joe Theriot with me today, also known as Joseph as well. What do you prefer? I didn't even ask you that. Do you
it's all good. Don't call me Joseph. I feel like I'm an angel and I'm the farthest thing from it, right?
I'm like Christopher. I'm like, nobody calls me Christopher.
Saint Christopher. Yeah, I'm with you. No. Yeah, we're all set. Joe is fine.
I love it, man. So Joe, literally, I can say this is literally probably the biggest success story we have in REI Radio to date. Again, we launched in December. Joe was one of the first students that we had, so he's been with us 5 months. And this story right here and the success he's seen, honestly, is going to shake you up a little bit because, you have students that come in and you give them a roadmap. And again, there's some people like Joe that just get it and they run with it, and you step back and go, man, that's how it ought to be done. And dude, this is changing your business, like literally changing your business. So let's get into it real quickly before we hop into the meat. Joe, give a quick background, man. Where are you located? How long you been in the game? Just kind of give us a snapshot of who you are in your business.
Yep. All of New Hampshire, basically we cover, and then north of Boston. So we stay out of Metro Boston, but north of Boston. So Massachusetts, all of New Hampshire, a little bit of Maine is generally the geography. I've been doing it for about 6 years now. We started out fix and flip, thinking that, I left my career as a machinist, that if I just did one fix and flip, that, like that was it. That was what I thought I was going to do, was just rehab houses. And what it's turned into now, and there's a legit company with 10 employees and payroll and marketing budget and EOS and traction. It's just like, this isn't what I imagined 6 years ago. So
yeah. So you kind of went to, I'm going to be this solo investor, solo entrepreneur, to now you're sitting on a team. Right. Now you're moving into leadership and how to operate an organization. And you mentioned EOS. If you're new to the game, that's a book that both Joe and I recommend you read, called Traction, because it's kind of an operating system for how you run your business. So my company's built off of it. Your company's built off it as well. So now you're running this thing. You got payroll. You have literally a little bit of a monkey on your back. So lead generation, having the right marketing channel matters, because you're not just feeding yourself and your family. You got payroll to make. You got to continue to feed this beast and this machine. So before you stepped into radio as a marketing channel, again, people are always interested. What were you doing prior to that? How were you generating lead opportunities?
Yeah, the company was built on inherited property solutions and the branding of that, and really doing direct mail and being the one that really could speak to the niche of inherited property solutions, right? So it was the direct mail thing. That was one, because I could execute there. And we would do really high. My cost per deal was real low and my return on investment was real high, right? But I was the guy doing that. So that wasn't scalable. And we were putting out the most amount of bandit signs in the area. No one beat me in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, thousands upon
thousands. How many were you putting out?
Oh, yeah. Number, 500 a week, Yeah. So had a driver, doing, guy putting them out, all that. And I started off, my very first deal came from bandit sign. So it was built on bandit signs and inherited property solutions branding. And we went into text messaging before anyone knew what text messaging was. We were like one of the first Sherpa users. Everyone laughed at me. Brent Daniels laughed at, like all the big players laughed at me with text messaging, and now everybody's doing it. So it's pretty funny to see, but I hate saturation and I hate competition. So here we are with radio.
Absolutely. So of those three, before radio, which one would you say you had the most trust in, that was giving you the best return? Because people are listening going, okay, I've heard of all those three, but which was your kind of bread and butter, your favorite of those three?
Yeah, the texting was really doing well for us, but it just took so much of the team's time with data management, and it's just, I don't know.
It's high maintenance.
It's high maintenance. Yeah, thank you. It's high maintenance. It's not I don't know. I can't even describe it to put it into words. I mean, I like direct mail, but a lot of people are in that space. I don't necessarily like it anymore. And bandit signs, there wasn't anybody doing it at scale either here. So I don't know. I'd have to say text messaging, if
Okay.
anything.
But again, that game has changed. I've
Yeah.
had the same challenge on the direct mail side in 2018. You said it. I hate oversaturation. I hate when everyone starts to do a marketing channel and then the dollar per dollar return drops. And again, that's why radio, I think, is so valuable, because there's virtually no competition, and we're doing everything on our side to preserve it by limiting the amount of people that we teach this, because I don't want it to turn into what happened with text blasting with other things as well. And I know for you, that's one of your concerns. You're like, this is working really well.
Right.
I don't know how much I want to talk about how good it's been. So I get it. So let me ask you this question. What first attracted you to radio? Like, you heard about it. What were a couple characteristics you go, you know what? I think I need to execute on this in my business. What was it?
Yeah. I mean, I met you and you didn't realize, like, we met, but I don't think you really realized what was happening at that time. And I was watching you like a hawk. And I caught, you said something about radio, and it triggered, like, my radar went up, and I was like, radio. I never hear anybody on the radio stations that I listen to except for Than Merrill and his stupid, I'll sell you education classes, right? So, my radar went up instantly when I heard the radio thing from you, prior to you even having a class put together yet, right? So that was what drew me in. Is I knew you had a successful business, and I was watching you, basically. And once you said you were doing something, I was like,
and I remember that. I remember you picking my brain. We were sitting in Brent Daniel's office in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep.
And I remember sitting there in his office, and I remember the questions just kind of started coming. And I know it kind of had piqued your interest, but this was before we were teaching anyone how to do it. This was still kind of my secret sauce, right? Something I'd been holding on to for like 9 going on 10 years now. So, I mean, I get it. So number one, virtually no competition. That hits you like, I don't know anyone else doing it. What might be the second thing that attracted you outside of that initially?
Yeah. So the big thing for me was I have a certain amount of leads I need to get each month, which equals a certain amount of leads, equals a certain amount of deals, equals a certain amount of profit. So radio is semi-predictable from what I've seen. And if I put in X amount of dollars, I get X amount of leads, which there is variances in there, but I wanted marketing channels that require less from me to be in there having to do things. I want to be a business owner, not a data manager and having to go buy data and spreadsheets. And that's not where I want to be. So radio was my big goal for 2020 was to do marketing channels that required less manipulation.
You don't want to pick up a marketing channel and pick up another job.
Yeah, basically that's what was happening. Like what text messaging was, I was picking up I felt like I was owning a text messaging company. You know what I mean? Like data management. I'm not that guy.
I agree. The phrase I use to maybe best describe radio is it's set it and forget it.
Yep.
And you and I relate. We know the pain of managing something that requires a lot of maintenance and the burden that creates on the team. It becomes a bottleneck, and more than anything, it just creates frustration.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get rid of those things, because as you scale it, it just gets more and more complex and requires more and more management. The thing about radio is you scale it, it doesn't require any work because the radio station is doing all the management. All you're doing is increasing your call volume, which you said was the initial thing you wanted to do. Right. I just need to make the phone ring. I don't want to manage something on the backside that's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally get it. So somebody's listening, right? What type let me ask this question. What was the experience in setting it up? We're talking about the management of it, but scale 1 to 10, 10 being an absolute time suck to set this up, 1 being, man, this was pretty simple. Man, shoot the audience straight. How difficult was it to set up?
I mean, you're already, for me, it wasn't difficult because I have a marketing person on the team. I like call rate, all this stuff. This was, for me, this was like on a scale of 1 to 10, of 10 being most difficult, this was really like a 2 or 3 from a standpoint of actually getting a phone number, setting up in CallRail, getting a commercial recorded. Like the radio station is going to record the commercial for you, so it's not real hard there. I mean, to me, it's relatively simple from a setup standpoint of things. I think it was one of the more easier channels that I've had to deal with, really.
Yeah, that was my experience too. Not only is it set it and forget it, again, the work obviously goes on the launch of something. And I have found radio only has one hurdle. There's some things you set up that have multiple hurdles. Really, the only hurdle on radio is the negotiation piece. That's it. You probably agree. Everything outside of that's pretty like administrative. Record your ad, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that's the setup of it. Yes, is the probably easiest part of anything that we've set up. You know,
Yeah.
for sure.
Now, the big question, everyone's listening going, okay, great. It's set and forget it. Sounds nice, easy to set up. Let's talk about some returns. Like, is Joe actually doing deals on this thing, making any money? So you've been up, let's just create some context. You started radio 5 months ago, and you're on how many stations right now?
We're on 15 radio stations.
15. So
Yes.
if you're listening, the first thing you would probably tell yourself is, if this guy went from 0 stations to 15, this must be working, because he wouldn't be launching it at that level. And then you and I were talking about, you have spent roughly about $25,000 on radio in that time frame. And how much do you have kind of in the pipeline, set to close, contracted, et cetera? What are you seeing on that side?
Yeah, I can break that down a little bit without getting super into the weeds. But basically, 25,000 in marketing for, hard costs, and we just ramped back up heavy here in the past 2 weeks to go in at about $2,700 a week on ad spend, and that we're at about $145,000 of revenue on the board, not including, I forget how many listings we have, 7 or 8 listings, like literally listed, plus I don't even know how many on the board, and leads in the funnel. Like, the funnel is full. Like, we bought a house today buying it for 50, simple, easy breezy, buy it 50, turn around and resell it for 100. I just got a contract in on Cape Cod today, signed. Yesterday we assigned a deal for 10 grand. I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if that speaks enough volume for it working or not working, just between yesterday and today.
I think I hear it. So lead volume is strong. Your board's filled up.
Yeah.
You scaled this. You spent 25,000. You got 147,000 on the board. And on top of that, you're like me. Not only are you doing the cash offer side, then you have this other revenue side that we didn't even add in on what that's going to equate to, which is 8 retail listings. Because like us, if they don't go cash offer, we're going to list the property too. So that's a whole nother revenue stream that's going to be kicking down the pipeline as well.
Yep.
So if you're listening, like, those results right there speak for themselves. I mean, unbelievable for you to come in 5 months, do that. And you and I were doing some math and kind of shaking this out, if you lose a deal here or there, but we roughly figure that your dollar per dollar return, that is for every dollar you're spending, you roughly expect conservatively to get $4 back.
Yeah, conservative. Yeah.
And again, that's the most important number. Every dollar I put in this soda machine, how many I'm going to get back? And with that type of ad spend, if you're getting you're quadrupling your investment, let me just put it that way. That's something, going back to your original point, I need to have something I can depend on, something that's reliable. And so for me, one of my favorite things about radio is that it is reliable as well. Now, if you're listening for the first time and hearing about radio, you don't have to be like Joe and just go off to the races. That's the way I'm wired. I'm doing the same thing. But know that you can get on your first station really inexpensively. How much was your first station that you got on?
Yeah, I got a little bit lucky, if you want the truth. So I tried calling around quite a bit. It turned out we knew one of the large players in the area, one of the large local stations that has 11 radio stations on there. And they were willing to play ball with us. So I got full disclosure, I had to work it, don't get me wrong. But so we ended up doing a $3,000 ad spend, which was 300,000 cum the first
So that's where you started.
That's where
Your
we
base
started.
was 3,000.
Yep.
Mine, when I started, Joe, was 1,500.
Yep.
And I tell most people that you can start and get that first station somewhere around 1,000 to 2,000 a month.
Yep.
You went a little heavier. You went to 3,000, which is fine. But if you're listening going, dude, I don't have 25 grand, know that we snowball this thing.
Yeah.
My first station was $1,500 because that was the budget I had at the time for radio, going back like 10 years. Well, we spend $27,500 a month. Your goal, you and I were talking about, is you want to take your ad spend up to what, about 20,000 a month is where you want to be?
20 is what I have on the board that I have to spend basically to make what I need for revenue for the year. If it was up to me, I'd go to 30, but we're not going to yet.
It's scalable, man. I love
scalable.
something that we can invest in and it works, and then be like, oh, well, I got to go find something else because I've already hit the ceiling on that. Now with radio.
Right.
You can go $2,000 to 10 grand to 20 grand to 30 grand to 50 grand. And then if you want to start going into other markets, I mean, take it up to 6 figures, 7 figures. I mean, there's companies that do that nationwide. It's
Right.
been millions of dollars
Yeah.
on radio. So I love that it's scalable. So I think
Yeah.
that's cool. Now, people are listening. Again, I always like to put myself in the audience's kind of seat, and they're going, okay, this sounds great. We're talking about all the positives. Give me the flip side. What has been a challenge or a hurdle with radio? Let's just kind of give the audience like both sides of the coin. What was the biggest challenge for you with radio?
Yeah, definitely. I know out of that gate, it's no different than putting in offers to distressed sellers, right? And to a certain degree, it's buying, like I had to put it in my mind, I'm buying distressed radio space, and I had to take 20 no's to get 1 yes. And that was the toughest hurdle. Was I thought like this was going to be easy breezy. I'd call some radio, everyone would be like, yeah, man, let's do business. But that was not the case. And I got a lot of no's, a lot of people laughing at me. Finally we got in touch, just, something shook out. Right. And then, it started to snowball. And now radio stations, literally this week alone, and it's Tuesday, I've had 3 radio stations reach out to me agreeing to my pricing.
Agreed.
Right? Agreeing
the
to my
tables
pricing.
Have turned, have they not?
So
if you're listening, I agree with you. Really, if we're being transparent,
mm-hmm.
we are buying our radio like we buy our real estate at a wholesale discounted price. That's what we teach you, right? We tell you the number to buy it at, and then we kind of have to get you to mentally understand that a station will do it, because the station does not want you to know that they'll go down to that rate. And so they will. They'll tell you we can't do it. They'll tell you that you're crazy, etc. But it's no different than buying real estate, because if you were to tell the rest of the world that's not in real estate that we buy houses on a regular basis at 60, 70 cents on the dollar, they'll say, no way. That's not possible, because they live in a world where you pay retail. And the same as with radio, we have to help our students make that transition to understand, just like we do it on the real estate side, we go do the same thing on the radio side. And because we buy it at such a deep discount, that's one of the key things that makes it so profitable. Just like buying a house at a deep discount is what's going to make your profit. You agree with that?
Yeah, it's spot on. One of the radio reps that we're still doing business with, every time I talk to him, he's like, Joe, nobody has got radio at so if I would have called him specifically, we would have never gone anywhere. I knew the VP, and he was like, we don't ever sell radio at that price. Like, no one calls us trying to buy radio at there. We sell them what we want them to pay for radio, and they either agree or disagree, right? And then they get on the radio station. You came in and said, this is what I'm paying, take it or leave it, right? So and he's every time I talk to him, he's like, Joe, so it's really funny to see. It really
and that makes me happy. I mean, that's the secret sauce. That's why I tell people you have to have something, honestly, like REI Radio. I wish I could fully take credit and say, I figured this all myself out. I had some coaches that helped me kind of overcome those hurdles. But you're absolutely right. We are teaching people not only a marketing channel that no one's using, we're teaching people how to do it in a way that it's not been done before. A way that's unique, where you picked up stations. And I'm sure that makes you feel good to know I got the best rate on radio in my entire market. And I know that because my reps are like, Joe, you got the best rate. That's how you know it's a winning strategy. And that's the strategy that we're helping people do. So if you're listening, you're like, man, I've been hearing about radio. I hear these testimonials coming out now that REI Radio has been up for about 4 or 5 months. We got students now like yourself closing deals, making it happen. So the proof now is out there. It's not me talking about how great it is. It's now the students coming in and going, what Chris was saying was the truth. Because again, this has kind of been my secret sauce. And Joe, you and I had talked about this candidly. It's like, we don't want a lot of people to know about it. And people are like, well, Chris, why do you share this? And I go, because I just realized I'm not trying to take over the entire United States anymore. So Joe, I'm not going into your market. I'm not going into other states. I'm going to stay in my market. So if I can help you, Joe, in another market do it, what's it going to hurt me? Because I'm not coming to your territory. So let's kind of share this value as well. But if you're listening, man, the place to start is to book a call. You got to make sure your market is open because we're doing exclusivity per market, particularly depending on the size. It might have 1, 2, maybe max 3 if it's a huge city. But a lot of these cities only have 1 or 2 people. But book a call. Go to wholesalinginc.com/REI Radio. Again, that's wholesalinginc.com/REI Radio. Book a call before this is fundamentally all sold out. And guys like Joe and I will be on the side talking about how our businesses are doing well, particularly with everything that's going on because of radio. Now, going back, you made a great point. The tables have turned. So you kind of had to humble yourself on that initial call. They don't know who Joe is. You got to fight to get that first rate. And I told you what will happen over time is you'll get branded in your area and then they start knocking on your door. And that's what you're finding now. They're seeking you out. So it's no longer, I'm Joe, this is what I'm trying to do. It's, hey, Joe, what do we got to do to get you on our radio station? Is that what you see is happening?
I'll tell you what I see is happening, all right? Hey, you want some positivity here? We played in front of 2.4 million cume last week, okay? There is, state of New Hampshire has a population of 1.4 million, all right? And we're in there. There isn't a person that I don't meet in real estate. It doesn't say, Joe, if I hear another one of your damn ads again, like people, everybody we're coming in contact with is like, I had my cousin that does real estate in Mass. She's like, Joe, congratulations, you're on KISS. That's like a 900,000 cume station. Like, so, and then the radio stations are reaching out to me now saying, we'll give you the pricing. The guy that laughed at me the most at Entercom was like, you'll never get on, the Red Sox station. You'll never get on. Begging me now to get on the radio station with them. You know what I mean? Hounding me now.
Why
right?
I laugh is because I experienced all this myself on my own. And now it's so good to share it with someone like you because now I'm like, I know all this and I went through it and I'm just laughing because now I got someone over here and I'm watching, I'm going, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
And if you heard like cumes or whatever, all we're talking about is the listenership. And when he says over 2 million cumes, let's just put it this way. That is a lot of people hearing that ad. And dude, the amount of branding that you're getting for your business, the celebrity status that you're moving to in your area where people are like, Joe, I heard you. I mean, you got to understand, and I don't know, here's the next thing you're going to experience. You're getting a little bit of it now. It's when all of a sudden everyone starts to elevate you to celebrity status. And they start to act a little bit differently around. I'm telling you, that's the next thing that's coming down the pipeline, Joe, because it's like everyone knows who you are. And it's no different than the attorney that we all know on the radio that when we see out somewhere, we're like, oh my gosh, that's that attorney I hear. It's just, it's happened psychologically in the mind. And that's what you're creating. And I don't know that you can put a price tag on that type of branding. Now we're getting into what Coca-Cola and Apple and these companies have done so well at a global level. You're starting to do that at a local level and really create that branding. So last question, kind of wrapping up. Joe, if somebody's listening, what's kind of the last thought you would leave them if they're like, man, should I make a decision on this? Should I move forward? Like, what would you tell them? I think we've said enough, but just to bring it home.
If you're in Mass and New Hampshire, don't do it. Stay away from my area. Let's just put that out there because that's the kind of guy I am. I'll be frank with you. Stay out. And then otherwise, though, you definitely should. It's a channel that, is predictable. It's there. What's really nice about this too is not 10 other people texting them. So generally speaking, if someone calls in from a radio ad, they don't have somebody else that's a professional to service them. You You're only you, basically. So it's a really good place to be, because even if you, hypothetically, I don't like missing calls, but if you miss that call, you get back to them. It's not like PPC, pay per click, where there's 10 other people advertising, and if you don't get back to them within 1 minute, they're on to the next person, right? Here, you're the only one. They're calling you. It's really, it's a different style
Not
lead.
list dependent.
Yeah,
Everything
yes,
else is list
right.
dependent. Everyone's battling over a list. I don't care if you cold call, direct mail, RBM, text blast. The reason it's oversaturated because it's just different methods going after the same list. We're
Right.
not list dependent. We're hitting an audience that's not getting touched. They're untapped. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that means it's nice to go on an appointment where I'm not going up against 5 other wholesalers. So
Yep.
Joe, man, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the candidness. I've loved this interview. It's been fantastic. Let me say publicly, dude, I'm super proud of you. Dude, I mean, I know what your future looks like. When I can see someone like yourself come in, run with this at this level, I know whatever other opportunities you get, man, you're just going to crush it. So, man, no telling where you're going to be 5-10 years from now, man. So super proud of you, and so glad this has been great for you. So to the rest of you, again, go to wholesalinginc.com/REI Radio, book a call. Until next time, in which we add more value, we will catch you then. Thanks so much.